Step inside the fascinating homes and journey of Carolyn Jones, the woman who brought Morticia Addams to life. Born in 1930 in Amarillo, Texas, Carolyn had a childhood that was anything but glamorous. When her father abandoned the family in 1934, 4-year-old Carolyn, her younger sister Bette Rhea, and their mother moved into her grandparents' humble Amarillo home. This house that would shape her earliest years was a modest dwelling that stood in stark contrast to the opulent estates she would later call home. Jones suffered from severe asthma that often restricted her childhood activities, and when her condition prevented her from going to the movies, she became an avid reader of Hollywood fan magazines and aspired to become an actress. But Carolyn Jones wasn't content to remain trapped by circumstance or geography. She enrolled at the Pasadena Playhouse in California at age 17, with her grandfather, Charles W. Baker, paying her tuition. After being spotted by a talent scout, it was clear this investment in her dreams proved to be the first stepping stone toward a life filled with both magnificent homes and heartbreaking challenges. By the peak of her career in the 1960s, Carolyn Jones had achieved something remarkable. She had transformed from that asthmatic child reading magazines in a cramped Texas home to the mistress of a 13-room Hollywood mansion. Her marriage to future mega-producer Aaron Spelling, who would eventually amass a net worth of $600 million, placed her at the center of Hollywood's most exclusive real estate circles. Yet, her story is more complex than simple rags-to-riches success. Jones would experience the highs of mansion living and the lows of financial uncertainty, all while battling the typecasting that followed her most famous role. Let's begin our tour where Carolyn's story started, in the modest family home in Amarillo, Texas, where she lived with her maternal grandparents after her father's abandonment. This wasn't the sprawling ranch that Texas oil money might suggest, but rather a typical Depression-era family home that housed multiple generations out of necessity rather than choice. The house likely featured the standard architectural elements of 1930s Texas homes: wood frame construction, a front porch to catch the evening breeze, and small, compartmentalized rooms that reflected the era's more formal living arrangements. For young Carolyn, confined by her severe asthma, this home became both sanctuary and prison. The living room, where she spent countless hours reading Hollywood fan magazines, was where her dreams first took shape. It was in this modest space that she began to envision a life far from the flat plains of the Texas Panhandle. The bedroom she shared with her sister Bette Rhea was where Carolyn's imagination ran wild. Unable to participate in typical childhood activities due to her breathing difficulties, she created elaborate fantasy worlds inspired by the movie stars she read about in photoplay and modern screen magazines. The walls of this small room witnessed the birth of an ambition that would eventually take her to the heights of Hollywood success. What makes this humble beginning so poignant is how it contrasted with everything that would follow. The financial insecurity of her childhood, living in her grandparents' home because her mother couldn't afford their own place, would drive Carolyn's later pursuit of luxury and security. This house represented everything she wanted to escape: small-town limitations, financial uncertainty, and the feeling of being trapped by circumstances beyond her control. When Carolyn arrived in California, her living situation reflected the reality of most aspiring actors: cramped, affordable, and far from glamorous. Her early years in Hollywood were spent in modest apartments and boarding houses around Pasadena and Hollywood, sharing space with other hopeful performers who had come west. But it was here she met a fellow Texan, a young man named Aaron Spelling, and they became a couple. After their marriage, Aaron splurged on the construction of a crazy 13-room mansion, complete with deep baths, a tennis court, and, amazingly, a soda fountain. This extraordinary home represented the pinnacle of Carolyn Jones's success and her full embrace of Hollywood luxury. The mansion, built during the height of Carolyn's film career in the 1950s, was a testament to both her success and her understanding of what Hollywood stardom required. This wasn't just a home, it was a stage set for the glamorous life that fans expected their favorite stars to live. The 13 rooms were carefully designed to accommodate both intimate family life and entertainment that was essential to maintaining one's position in Hollywood's social hierarchy. The centerpiece of the home was likely a grand living room designed for entertaining industry executives, fellow stars, and the influential people who could make or break a career. The deep baths that Carolyn specifically mentioned were a luxury that reflected both her personal indulgence and the era's fascination with European-style luxury. The tennis court spoke to the physical culture that was becoming increasingly important in Hollywood, where maintaining one's appearance was crucial to career longevity. But it was the soda fountain that perhaps best captured the whimsical, almost childlike joy that Carolyn brought to her success. This wasn't a practical addition, but rather a delightful indulgence that turned her home into a kind of adult playground. Carolyn also stocked her wardrobes with furs and started accessorizing with high-end jewels, for the fans. The mansion featured walk-in closets and dressing rooms that could accommodate an extensive wardrobe befitting a Hollywood star. The home's architecture likely reflected the popular styles of 1950s Beverly Hills, perhaps a colonial revival or Mediterranean-style estate with formal gardens, a circular driveway, and the kind of imposing facade that announced the success of its inhabitants. This was a home designed to be photographed for fan magazines, to host dinner parties for industry insiders, and to serve as the backdrop for a life lived in the public eye. Unfortunately, her marriage to Spelling ended after 12 years. While acting on the road, she married her voice coach, Herbert Greene, a well-known and respected Broadway conductor and musical director, and they moved together to Palm Springs, California. This marked a significant change in Carolyn's residential choices, moving from the hustle and bustle of Hollywood to the desert tranquility of Palm Springs. This period represented a quieter chapter in Carolyn's life, where she could focus on her marriage to Herbert and explore different aspects of her creativity. But she would eventually move back to Hollywood. Then, in July 1983, she fell into a coma at her home in West Hollywood, California, where she died on August 3rd. This final residence tells perhaps the most poignant chapter of Carolyn Jones's housing story, a return to modest circumstances after the grandeur of her earlier homes. Of course, no tour of Carolyn Jones's homes would be complete without visiting the most famous residence she ever inhabited, the Gothic Victorian mansion that housed the Addams family. While this macabre masterpiece exists only in the realm of television magic, it represents perhaps the most iconic home in classic TV history and the place where Carolyn's most enduring legacy was born. The imposing three-story structure, with its distinctive tower, wraparound porch, and perpetually gloomy atmosphere, became as much a character in the show as Morticia herself. The mansion's interior was a masterclass in Gothic grandeur, featuring the kind of ornate dark Victorian furnishings that perfectly matched Morticia's sophisticated yet sinister aesthetic. The grand staircase, where Morticia would glide with supernatural grace, the drawing room where she would tend to her beloved carnivorous plants, and the conservatory filled with dead roses and exotic specimens all reflected Carolyn's interpretation of elegant darkness. Every room was carefully designed to be both beautiful and unsettling, much like Morticia herself, sophisticated enough to host a dinner party, yet macabre enough to serve Eye of Newt as the main course. What makes the Addams mansion so fascinating is how perfectly it matched Carolyn's own sensibilities as an actress. Just as she had once lived in a 13-room mansion, complete with luxury amenities, Morticia inhabited a home that was equally grand but deliciously twisted. The mansion's blend of elegance and eccentricity, from the torture chamber in the basement to the perfectly manicured dead garden, reflected Carolyn's ability to find humor and humanity in the darkest corners of life. It was in this fictional home that she created her most memorable performances, proving that sometimes the houses that exist only in our imagination can be more real and lasting than any physical address. As we close the doors on this tour of Carolyn Jones's homes, we're left with a profound appreciation for a woman whose residential choices reflected the full spectrum of the American entertainment experience. From that asthmatic child reading movie magazines in her grandparents' Amarillo home to the sophisticated actress breathing her last in West Hollywood, Carolyn's journey through these various residences tells a story that's both inspiring and cautionary. The 13-room mansion with its tennis court and soda fountain wasn't just a display of wealth, it was a statement about believing in oneself and embracing the rewards of hard work and talent. The Palm Springs retreat represented the possibility of finding peace and happiness outside the Hollywood machine, and that final West Hollywood home demonstrated the dignity and grace with which one can face life's ultimate challenges. What makes Carolyn Jones's story so compelling isn't just the glamour of her peak years or the tragedy of her early death, but the authenticity with which she approached each chapter of her life. Whether she was living in luxury or simplicity, in sickness or in health, she remained true to her craft and her values. Her homes were never just addresses, they were the stages on which she lived out the drama of a remarkable life. If you've enjoyed this intimate look into the private world of classic Hollywood's most beloved Gothic matriarch, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive tours of the homes where entertainment history was made. Let us know in the comments which classic Hollywood stars' homes you'd like us to explore next, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest content. Until next time, keep dreaming of the magic that happens when talent meets opportunity behind the gates of Hollywood's most fascinating homes.